Virtual summits are the most powerful online marketing tool available to grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and create an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. If you are ready to take your summit to the next level, then tune into the Virtual Summit Podcast with Dr. Mark T. Wade.
Hi, I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, founder of Virtual Summit Software and creator of the One Day Summit Formula. And I'm on a mission to help you, the summit host, get your summit out to the world in a powerful and impactful way. So let's get started. Hey, Summit host, Dr. Mark T. Wade here, founder of Virtual Summit Software and your host on the Virtual Summit Podcast. When I say we're in store for a treat, I am not underselling this. We're probably going to have one of the most interesting episodes that we've ever had on the Virtual Summit Podcast, and that's all possible because we have legendary Cara Gubbins with us. How are you doing today, Cara?
I'm good, Mark. How are you doing?
Excellent. Thank you. I'm very excellent right now because I am so excited to jump in to your topic of your summit. Cara's hosted multiple summits, 4 summits actually, in a very interesting and niche that we'll be talking about with animal communications. But before animal communications, but before we jump into all the goodies we're going to talk about with the summit, Cara, I'd love for you to take a moment and just tell our audience a little bit more about yourself.
So I'm going to try to do the Cliff Note version because I can just go. So I was a kid in a Catholic family in Chicago, living in the suburbs and landlocked, just in that really traditional Midwest world. And Sunday nights were my haven because that's when Marlon Perkins and Wild Kingdom was on and Jacques Cousteau was on. And that's what ignited my dream to be a biologist. And so I spent most of my life training to be a biologist and work with animals. And I went and I got a bachelor's and I got a master's degree. I got a PhD. I did my own research. I published books. I published papers. All that stuff. And then something was really missing and I didn't know what it was. And so I found myself driving along Highway 1 in California, in Northern California, and I saw a herd of horses in a pasture. And I was like, wow, I want to know what it's like to be them. And I just drove along, and then I realized I was sobbing, there were literally tears falling on my arms as I was driving because I didn't know what it was like to be that horse. And I realized that's what was missing. That's what that hole was inside of me. I wanted a deeper connection with animals than what I could get by just watching them. And so kind of fast forward because it was 10 years before anything else really happened in that story. But for those 10 years, I had my dog and we used to walk every night in our neighborhood after dinner and the stars would come out and I literally would wish on a star. Starlight, star bright, I wish I may, I wish I might. And my wish was to be able to talk to animals. That was it. And so I went back to school and I got a master's degree in spiritual psychology because they said, you get to make your dream come true that hasn't come true yet. And I was like, I have this weird, crazy ass, I can't swear, a weird dream. And it's not coming true on its own. I was 44 years old and I'd had this dream since I was a kid. And so long story short, I in that master's program in spiritual psychology, I cleared all my blocks to be myself, all of them. I still got plenty, but I cleared the biggies. And what showed up was this natural ability to communicate with animals that I honed by taking a year-long training class. So that was when that happened. I had been teaching biology at the local college and I quit and I started my own business as an animal communicator. And that's 10 years ago. This is my 10th anniversary. And so that's kind of my story in a nutshell.
Virtual Summit's software makes hosting a summit easier than ever. The only software in the world designed specifically for hosting a summit lets you set up a summit in a matter of hours with no tech skill or team needed. You can try out the Virtual Summit's software free at virtualsummits.com. But hurry, this is a limited offer.
It is extremely interesting story. It's got me captivated. I think we could probably just talk on that topic for an hour or two, but we're going to get into the summit, which will shine more light on that as well, but also give us some insights and goodies into the successes and lessons learned that you've had with your summit. So let's talk about it. You've run a couple summits. So give us kind of an overview, maybe like what was the, actually, give us an overview of the summits. What was the first one? Just kind of a brief description of them, and then we'll dive a little bit deeper as we go.
So my first summit was the Animal Wisdom World Summit. And I think that I created that summit because I was feeling like I'd been in business for 8 years. I wasn't where I wanted to be. I wasn't feeling like my business was matching who I felt like I wanted to be in the world. And I really wanted a way to move my field forward. I was like, we need more leaders standing up. If I look for other animal communicators to partner with and to network with, when I was a scientist, we'd always get together at conferences and talk shop. And I was like, I want to talk shop with somebody. And it was super hard to find anybody. And so I decided I'm going to go out and I'm going to do that myself. I'm going to find people that I can talk to about these topics that are really interesting to me. So I created the Animal Wisdom World Summit in 2018. I had 25 or 26 speakers. The first dozen were people I already knew. I was like, well, I know I have 10 people who will say yes if I invite them. And so I started there and I did those interviews. And I kind of, got my confidence. And then I said, well, who else should I interview? Because I wanted to do a full week summit. And they said, talk to this person, talk to that person. And so I started reaching out to people I didn't know and inviting them. And it was great because I already had a summit. Like if they all said no, I had enough people to go ahead. And I was inviting to something that was solid, that was real. It's not like I have this dream of doing this far off thing. I have this solid thing that I'm inviting you to join. And so I got amazing speakers for that. I got some people that I had been following for 20 years on my own, reading their books and all that kind of stuff. I got people that were, to me, a pipe dream, just huge celebrities in the field, and they said yes, and it was just such a revelation. So I did that first summit, fall of 2018. What happened for me was I doubled the income in my business that year, and it all happened after the summit. And so right there, I was like, whoa, this is super fun. I really like this. And the other thing that was really amazing that happened is as I was interviewing these celebrities, we were having a great time, and they would compliment me on my interviewing skills, which I had no concept of that. But these are people who've been interviewed all over the world for years, and they're like, you're really good at this. And I was like, huh, okay. And then when I aired the summit, I got a lot of emails about people saying they love watching me talk to people. They love the way I interview. And so this was a personal revelation of where did this come from? I'm just being myself and interested in talking to people and making them look good and all that stuff. But there's something there. And so that was kind of another little piece of the journey for me personally and in my business. And then I ran the numbers in my business at the end of the year, which I always do and which I tell everybody to do. You have to know where your money's coming from. You have to know what people are buying. You have to know what your business is. And for a $100 all access pass for this summit, I sold way more of those than I sold for a $100 half an hour consultation with me with your pet personally. And this little light bulb went off, and I realized people like to pay me to talk to other people way more than they want me to talk to their pets. and that was awesome, right? That's a great realization. So I had 3,500 people in the audience for my first summit, and I think I made, because I think the numbers are important, and I think we should talk numbers. I think we should demystify everything and talk real numbers, real people. So I think I made $14,000 from just the summit sales. And then I, of course, had a class that I offered afterwards. So I know I have the numbers somewhere, but I made probably another $10,000 or $12,000 from that class, which I had never made on that class ever before. So here's Cara going, whoa, like, this is really new. I offer something, people sign up, I fill my classes, all of this stuff is just, it was just gold. It just really was a total game changer for me. So from there, I went and I did the Animal Communicator and Healer Summit, and I was a beginner again. And I didn't know if anybody was going to be interested in this topic. Maybe it was too small. How am I going to find people? I've been trying to find people for years for just to talk to compare notes with, an animal communication shop talk. And that summit did the same numbers. I had 3,500 people. I made twice as much money on it from selling the passes. My class afterwards, I offered the same class after that one. I sold twice as many spots in that class. And this is when I realized, like, I have a viable business model for me. I'm in heaven talking to these people. I love what they're doing. I love sharing that with the world. I love inspiring the next generation of animal communicators coming up. I love that I can connect people that wouldn't otherwise know about each other. And I'd get emails from people saying, I saw so-and-so on your summit and I had a session and it changed my life and now I'm doing this. And I was like, I was part of that. And so for me, what summits did for me as a person and as a business person was they allowed me to be myself in the most powerful way I've experienced yet. More powerful than writing best-selling books, more powerful than being on CNN, like more powerful than anything that I've done. I get to show up and I get to help my colleagues. I get to help the animals everywhere, all over the world. And I get to help people make their dreams come true. And I have fun doing it. It's like the best. So after those two successes, I thought, well, this is what I'm doing. And I still do readings. I still teach my classes. I still do all that stuff. But now I have kind of a calendar in my business where I know I have these events and I know where they're going and I know how to do them and I can enjoy it. And I have, now I have a system for being myself in the world and making an impact. And really that piece that I was looking for of showing up as a leader in my field, I'm now seen as a leader in my field because I do these summits. So I've now done each of those summits twice. And so we're now a year and a half into this experiment that I've been having with virtual summits. And I just could not be happier with what's going on in my world.
Well, I got to give you a big shout out for all of that success and, getting over the barrier at the beginning of, uncharted waters and then everything that's come from it. I have a couple questions. I want to dive into some of the things you've talked about. One, first off, I want to also kind of reiterate that doing more, like kind of making a plan or a calendar with your summits and doing more than one, the power of that. I see a lot of summit hosts, they run out, they do a summit. Sometimes it's successful, sometimes it's not so successful, and then they just give up and move on. But the power of that first summit and how that builds into the next one, and then essentially if you can do even just an annual summit yearly, that those build on top of each other, and they really do position, as you said, as the authority or influencer in niches and industries as you've seen. So I'm glad you've said that, and I hope everybody's kind of listening to that. Even if your first one doesn't crush it, already start planning for that next one. So just keep that in mind. Now, I want to come back to the interview aspect. You got a lot of positive attention there and some good feedback on your interview skills. You said you hadn't really considered that or thought about that at the beginning. For us over at Virtual Summits, we think that, the power of it, the summit is the power of the interview. I mean, what is a summit but a series of interviews, right? So the more impactful and powerful your interview is, the more successful your summit is. So I'd love to kind of like you reflect back on kind of your process of interviewing and maybe some tips or some suggestions on how people could improve their interview skills or things that are working well for you.
Yeah, so it's so funny because I wish I could say why I'm a good interviewer. but I kind of don't know. But I do, here's a few things that I do on purpose, right? So number one, I start with my audience in mind. I really think about who's coming to this summit, where are they, what's going on in their world, what do they need, and what would I have been looking for at that point, right? And so one of the things that I do every single time is I start with my speaker's story. And I think that this is really important because it number one, it personalizes the connection, right? Like now everybody in the audience can relate. They've had a challenge. They've done a thing that led them to someplace they didn't expect or whatever. And so now instead of going, oh, here's somebody who's, special and different from me because they're an authority in this field that I'm not in yet, it's like, oh, wait, here's this other person who just did this thing, and that's a way to do it. And then collectively listening to 20 or 30 of those stories, the audience, the people in the audience are going to go, wow, like there is no one way to do this. I could do it my way. And maybe I'm already doing it and I just didn't know it yet. So I feel like starting with a story, stories are powerful. I mean, it draws people in, and it connects people on the heart level, on the emotional level. And so then they're ready to listen to whatever information you have. The email I got from somebody was, one of the emails after one of my summits, somebody said, wow, you're just such an amazing interviewer. I just, whatever, all these wonderful things. And I got an email from her about 3 months later because she took one of my classes. And she said, oh, now I know why you're such a good interviewer. It's because of what you taught us in this class, which is about being grounded and present and unattached to the outcome. I'm just a curious, neutral, interested person. And so that's the other thing that I do is I make sure that I'm ready, and I make sure that I'm focused, and I make sure that my attention is on my interviewee. So it's all about them and making them look good. And if they have a point to make that they haven't made yet, I will gently nudge them to make it. And so that's, I think, the third thing is I feel like my job as an interviewer is to make my interviewee look good. And so I think that makes a difference too. I'm not competing. I'm not trying to be the smartest person in the room. I'm not trying to say, oh, well, when I do that thing, here's how I do it. I'm like, this is your time, your showcase. And I think that that's a really important part of it. And the fourth thing, this is what I'll finish with, is I'm authentic. I talk about the problems I'm having with my dogs and, the things that that might seem like, failures, or, well, she's a professional. How come she can't talk to her dog and make it do what she wants? And it's like, well, because it doesn't work that way. And here, I'm going to go and be vulnerable. And I'm going to say, here's the problem I'm having with my dog. And what's your perspective on it? And I think that also goes a long way to just be who you are.
I love that. So great takeaways there from the interviewing skills, and vulnerability does go a long way. Now, I'm going to make a point here also. Thank you for being open and transparent with your numbers. And I love that you've made such great success. The list, the audience generated on the first summit, 3,500. I would imagine in that niche is probably huge. But one of the misconceptions a lot of summit hosts have is that they have to do it when they do a summit that's got to be 10,000 or 20,000 leads. And that's what a successful summit is. And I'm constantly telling people it's not about the size of the audience. It's not about the size of the list. It's about the quality and engagement of that audience. That is what turns into the income and the success. So thank you very much for being open with those numbers. I'd love to actually now go back to one of the first things you were saying around your first summit and reaching out to the speakers, and some of the fears you had at that moment and at that time. A lot of our summit hosts are feeling that right now. Even I know seasoned summit vets, they've run 10, 15 summits, still get nervous when they do speaker outreach. So maybe share with us, one, a little bit of that fear that you, or anxiety, whatever it was that you were feeling. So everybody knows, they're not the only ones, and maybe a tip or two of how you got through that or how they could get through it.
So I think that I still get it. I get that little knot in my stomach as I'm sitting at my computer. I'm like, who are they gonna, who am I to ask this person to do this thing for me? And I think it gets easier. I think that because I started with people that I knew would say yes, I set myself up to overcome it. That was how I overcame it the first time. Because the first summit is like, it's this huge thing. It's this big cloud hanging over you, right? Like there's so many pieces, there's so many moving parts, and there's so many unknowns. And so I had that, of course, because that's why I reached out to people I knew would say yes first. so I really recommend start with the low hanging fruit. So start with people who will say yes. For all of my summits, I do not care if a person has a list. I don't care if they published a book. I care if they can talk about this topic that I think is meaningful to my audience. And so I think having that audience in mind, and you're being here in service to them. So I picture that in my field, it's mostly women. So I picture that woman who has this longing and this dream and doesn't know how to make it happen, because that was me for 10 years, right? And probably a lot longer, probably many decades. But I picture her and I think, what does she need to know? And who can speak to that? And so I've had speakers on my summit who don't have a website yet. I don't recommend it. It's not like it's great, because then, they had to work and get a website, and a free gift. So maybe that's an overstatement. So they have a website, but they don't maybe have a free gift or a way to sign people up, which you really should do as a speaker. And I've also had celebrities who have tens of thousands of followers. And it's not a criteria that I use. And I think that's another way to kind of get over that hurdle of that ask, is to know that it's because you're providing a service to your viewer to give them this information. And it's not about you. And I think when we make it about us is when we feel small, and we feel selfish, and we feel scared, and we make it about the other person. And it's like, this woman in Idaho with the wolf dog, she needs this. And this is the person. And I'm going to ask this person for her. And that's what helps me get over it. Because for me, and I know you say this too, Mark, summits are about relationships. This is not, we talk numbers, we'll talk money because we're in business and we have to, and that's part of it. But it's all about relationships and building those relationships with your audience, building those relationships with your speakers. It's all about relationship building. And so you start that relationship when you ask your speakers, when you invite them to be on your summit. You're starting that relationship with them, and you're starting that relationship with that person who hasn't even signed up for your summit yet, but that relationship is forming.
Be sure to check out the speaker management tool inside your virtual summit software, which lets you quickly and easily recruit and manage your speakers on your virtual summit, literally eliminating hundreds of hours of work. Get more information at virtualsummits.com.
Oh, it's so powerful. I love that. That's one of my favorite things right there. It is about the relationship. And the summit is the relationship building aspect. I love this. So we're getting, a little bit through this episode now. I want to make sure I ask a couple questions here, because you've done 4 summits. You've done a lot of summits at this point, more than a lot of our other guests. I'd like to kind of get your feedback or perspective on kind of what's changed. Like, do you just keep them exactly the same each time you do it? Do you change anything? And how do you determine when you're going to do one? Like, talk us through that process.
So I am the opposite of a creature of habit. So I don't do the same thing more than once, almost ever. And it's really funny to have these summits. I love the big event. So I love the energy of that. And so I love having an annual event that I know people will look forward to, that I'll look forward to. But that said, I don't want to do the same thing that I did last time. And so every time for each one of these summits, the first one was like, just let me live through this and get it done. And the second one was, again, a new niche. And so I was like, okay, well, let's see what happens, you know? And then when I came back to do the second one of each, I thought, well, I don't want to do the same thing. Where am I now, right? Like, what's going on now? And I want to do something different. So I for my second summit, I added bonus sessions. So I would have the main free broadcast interview, and then I would just do a shorter interview, going a little deeper into a topic. That became part of the bonuses of the All Access Pass. That went really, really well. You know, I sold more passes. The speakers were happy. People got more connected with the speakers. My speakers got more business from it, more traffic, all that stuff. So again, another win-win-win. And then I realized that one of the things that I've always done and I've always wanted to do, and I always said, when I'm a business person and I have my own business and I have my own money, I will donate a portion of it to a cause that I believe in. And so with my second round of summits, I was like, well, what am I waiting for? Dang it, Cara, put your money where your mouth is. And I now have a cause for each one of my summits. And so when people purchase the All Access Pass, a 10% off the top goes to a specific cause. And I also have a link for them to donate independently to that cause. And it's a cause that I personally believe in. So last fall was the Global White Lion Protection Trust, which is protecting lions everywhere from the horrific, I can't even think about it. There's just so many horrible things going on in the animal world, and they're working tirelessly to save habitat, to save animals, to stop the lion bone trade, to stop the cuddle to kill industry. And so that was my first cause that I donated to. And then this year when I did the Animal Communicator and Healer Summit, the fires were raging in Australia. And so our cause was donating to on-the-ground animal rescue and rehabilitation to help the animals in Australia recover from those huge wildfires. So that has been wonderful for me to personally know that I can give money to causes that I believe in, and it's been great for the community to come together and to raise their awareness about the great causes out there and support them. So that's kind of how I keep it fresh for myself. I always have new speakers and similar topics, but there's always somebody new that I find, or somebody recommends somebody, and so now that I've done this a few times, I get lots of recommendations and hey, I wish you had this person because they're amazing. And so I get to meet so many cool people. And then when I look at, for me personally, like I said, I don't want to do the same thing every day, day in, day out. I really like that variety and change. So how do I keep this kind of flowing the way I want it to flow, but in a way that it doesn't feel rote? So I don't feel like, oh gosh, another interview. Okay, well, let me ask you what your story is, right? Okay, and now can we get to the part where you say blah, blah, blah. So what I've done is make each one an annual event. And so I have 2 big summits each year, and I use those to launch my big class, How to Talk to Your Pet. And that's my standard thing. And more than twice a year for the big events is just too much for me. Then it's all that I do. And I don't want it to be all that I do. I want it to be part of what I do. And inspired by you, I am now thinking about a one-day summit. And I'm going to try to fit one of those in the next couple of months for a really small niche I think the one that I'm thinking about doing is animal chakras and animal energy systems. So we're getting way into the woo-woo world here, Mark. But for me, it's an experiment, and it's trying these things and seeing how they fit. But now I have kind of the basic structure in place, and now I can play with the finer points.
I love that. I want to know when that summit goes live. I want to be a part of that one. Animal chakras. That is amazing. That'd be the perfect one-day summit. And I'm very excited for that, to see that actually happen. You've just announced it on the air here. So
I'm stuck now. I threw down the
putting it out
gauntlet.
into the
I will have to do
universe.
it now.
So this is great. And everything you've been giving us has been fascinating, interesting, and powerful. As we wrap this episode up, though, I know one of the most common concerns, questions that our summit hosts have is like, well, how do I get people onto my summit? How do I promote it? And we know that speaker promotion is one of the more powerful aspects, but I like to just hear, like, what was the main strategies you did? Was there any extra flair or things that you added in, something maybe that worked better on one summit over another summit? Just kind of talk us through some of your promotional strategies.
So I would have to say this is probably where I get my lowest grade in summitology. I think I do so little promotion. And I think, that's a place that I really want to focus more on in the future, actually, because I really want animal communicators to be like McDonald's, right? Like I want them to be in every town, in every country, all over the world. And right now, there are animal communicators everywhere, but they don't know each other and people don't know about it. It's still this very kind of hidden in plain sight kind of a field. So the way that I approach promotion is I create graphics and swipe copy for my speakers. They all become affiliates, so they make money when they promote if it leads to a sale, and I have the automatic tracking of all of that stuff. I think the only thing that I do, and I actually feel a little embarrassed to be saying this, is I boost my Facebook posts. And that's it. And believe it or not, and so I have an ad spend of $100. It's crazy. It's ridiculous. And yet it's like, that's where I'm at. That's all I can do. And so that's what I do. And Facebook ads just intimidate the heck out of me. And they feel like this whole thing that I have to get a PhD in to be good at. And it just overwhelms me. And so I do this much. And there's plenty of room because, like I said, I think that my vision of helping to create this world that is blanketed, that is peopled. I want every animal lover to become an animal communicator. And I don't do that until I reach them, right? And I want to be the one that spreads this blanket and introduces them to all the people that can help them with whatever pieces they want. I don't have to do it all myself, but I'm in a powerful position as a summit host to say, here, let's all do this together. And here, I'm going to help, all these 30 speakers each time reach their hundreds of people, and it's going to spread out like ripples. So, not much on the promotion side.
Well, hey, one of the best things about a virtual summit, it's what we call a self-liquidating offer. It means you don't have to put money behind promotions. And in most cases, we actually even recommend people don't do Facebook ads, especially if they're not feeling comfortable with it, because it is a really great way to lose money as well, just throwing it at Facebook. But promotional strategies, items to speakers, very important, getting them the materials like you'd already mentioned, especially getting it to them in time so they have enough time to set their calendars and put it out there. Now, kind of one of the last things I'd like to touch on is we've heard a lot of the amazing things you've done, but we all know, especially after 4 summits, that there has to have been some challenge, some problem, something that didn't work right. So kind of talk us through maybe something that happened in one of your summits or something that you feel like could have been better and why.
So it's kind of like talking about summits after the fact is kind of like having a baby where you're like, yay, it's all done. It was great. And then my husband says, well, you were swearing an awful lot in the delivery room. Do you remember that? Like, oh yeah, but it's great. It's all great. Right. So, there's challenges every single time. There just really are. They're a little different every time. Technology is always funky. There's always a funky technology thing that happens that you can't anticipate. And that has happened to me on every summit. My first summit, daily emails didn't go out. And I was using a mail service delivery that didn't have help. And so I had to put in an email help request, And so those emails, it took them 24 to 48 hours, 36 hours, I think it finally was, before they got back to me about that really time-sensitive email that didn't go out. And they're like, oh, well. I was like, goodbye. We will not be working together again. So there's those little snafus, those little fires that pop up. And I think it's good to know that that's just part of the territory. And I've had them every time. I think the biggest kind of big picture challenge that I've had is my first Animal Wisdom Summit in 2018 was gangbusters. I mean, I felt like I hit a home run right out of the gate, to just mix as many metaphors as possible. And I think my expectation was that I can only go up from here, right? Like somehow I lucked out, I won the lottery, I had this great success, and of course the next one will be more successful. And so for my next one, the following year, I had a great lineup, great topics. I had even bigger speakers. Some of my speakers were legends in the field with tens and maybe hundreds of thousands of followers. And I had half of the people sign up that I did for the first year.
With the Ever Summit feature inside the Virtual Summit software, you can rerun your summit as if it were live, ongoing forever with one click of a button. This now lets you continue to use your summit forever, bringing in qualified and engaged leads every month into your business. Get more information at virtualsummit.com.
And so that was a real wake-up call. Like it doesn't just all automatically happen magically. Like there's something in the mix here that I have to look at. And so a couple of things that happened that time that actually I think made it a success, if I could talk, was I had an upsell. So when people signed up for the All Access Pass to purchase the All Access Pass, I had an upsell. For a lower price, they could also purchase last year's All Access Pass with a whole different set of speakers, right? And that sold really well. And so financially, I made the same amount of money with half as many viewers. So I think, being able to pivot and to maximize, right? Like to know that you have these assets that you can use again and again, you have this content that you can offer again to a new audience, I think was an important lesson there. That one paid off for me. And the other thing that happened with that was that the people the viewers, the audience for the summit, they loved it just as much as everybody did the year before. And so I got the same great energy, the same great feedback. Because my numbers were lower, it was a little bit dampened is the way it felt to me, right? So it just wasn't quite that same hurrah, but the content, the smaller group hurrah, it's just not as loud as the bigger group hurrah. So I knew that I was doing something right still. I knew it wasn't a total fluke that I had succeeded last time, and something was different. And so it was really that I had that opportunity to go, okay, objectively, Cara, what's going on, right? Because you're showing up, you're doing your interviews, you're getting the speakers, you're delivering the goods, but there's something that wasn't quite working right. And when I analyzed all of the information that I had, the lineup of my speakers, the topics for each day of the 4-day summit were different. And in the first summit, I had a whole day of animal communicators. And now that I had done a whole summit on animal communication, I didn't put that in this summit. And I think that was the only thing that I found was different. And I realized that animal communication is a big draw, and that has to be part of that summit. So, this fall when I do it again, I'll definitely include that.
That's great insight right there. Amazing. And I mean, that doesn't sound like too horrible of a mistake, considering same income, same revenue generated, half the numbers. That is, again, another example of it's not about the size of the audience, it's the qualification and engagement of that. So I love this. Cara, this has been absolutely phenomenal. Thank you so much for being open, transparent, informative, and giving us so much great information that we can add to our summit repertoire now. I know everybody listening is going, Mark, let me know where Cara's at. I need more Cara in my life. life. So, Cara, if you take just a second and let everybody know where you're hanging out and the best way to get in touch with you.
So you can find me online, caragubbins.com, and I have tons of, blogs and lessons and all kinds of free stuff there. I have a free gift, an intuition development package, because like I said, I want every animal lover to become an animal communicator. And so I'll start you off there with that so you can develop your animal communication. Of course, I'm on Facebook, so find me at Animal Wisdom Insiders. That's my group, my public group. And Ask Dr. Cara is my professional page, but the action really happens at Animal Wisdom Insiders. And then I have extra videos on YouTube too. So I have a pretty strong YouTube presence. I love posting stuff there, all kinds of different animal stuff to help people connect with animals and their dreams and make their dreams come true.
Amazing. Thank you. We'll make sure all of that is linked over in the show notes. Cara, thank you so much for being here with us today. It's been great chatting with you.
I've enjoyed it so much. Thank you, Mark.
Absolutely. And thank you, all you Summit hosts, for spending this time with Cara and I. I'm Dr. Mark T. Wade, your host here on the Virtual Summit Podcast. Remember, your message matters. So go out there and make an impact in the world. Don't forget to check out all of these amazing goodies and gems that Cara gave us over in the show notes at podcast.virtualsummits.com/165. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening. Now don't forget to subscribe and leave a 5-star review on the Virtual Summit Podcast. Head over to the show notes to check out all the links and resources from this episode, and be sure to grab your free trial of the Virtual Summit software.
Now, I want to end this episode by saying to all the Summit hosts listening right now, I believe in you, and you can do this. Summits are by far one of the most powerful ways to quickly grow your list, launch your platform, make more money, and most importantly, make an impact in the world, even if you're just getting started. So don't get caught up in analysis paralysis, because the world needs to hear your message, and there are people who are waiting for you to help them. So just get started, because imperfect action is always better than no action. Thank you, and see you on the next episode.